Now, number 10, a Pluto slug. Some people say Pluto isn't a planet or just a main planet anymore, just a dwarf planet. And to that, I say, no, Pluto is a real planet in my heart, okay? Anyways, on to what really matters. In 2016, NASA's New Horizons spacecraft got some nice pics of an icy region on Pluto's surface. If you look at the picture, there's like a little black formation in the center, and behind it is a trail. So it looks like a little slug has been making its way across the icy terrain, carving its own little path, making its way through this just desolate space. No, okay, I'm not crying because it's actually a slug, because it probably isn't. The scientists are saying it's likely a dirty block of water ice floating in a denser solid of nitrogen, so not a slug, but like it looks like it. It still is a mystery on what exactly it is, because that's more a hypothesis, you could say, but it is probably not a slug. But it doesn't stop me from thinking, like, doesn't that sound like a nice children's book or something? The slug on Pluto. It'd be so cute. That's all I'm thinking. On to number 9, the Mars spoon? Question mark? So this is a much closer planet than Pluto, who is still a planet in my heart. So this is Mars. So on a photo captured by the beloved NASA Curiosity rover, you can see what looks like a spoon, possibly? Like, it looks like a spoon, honestly. There's a handle, check. Mini concave element on the end of the handle, also check. Yes, it just looks like it's covered in dust because it's on the surface of Mars, which is, you know, a red, dusty planet, but spoon, nonetheless. This was spotted by a YouTube user called UFO Hunter, which led to more people kind of agreeing and being like, yeah, it looks kind of like a spoon. From then on, more people were questioning, just like, yo, where did this spoon come from? Was a Martian eating an ice cream sundae before an entire Martian race was just wiped out? And so that's kind of what UFO Hunter was thinking, saying it may be left over from a lost civilization, but we could just be projecting our ideas onto a clump of space dust, honestly. What if it's one of those things where you just touch it and it crumbles? Could be. I don't know. At number 8, fish rock. Is this another thing we could just be projecting? This fish-looking thing spotted on Mars is probably just a rock, but we gotta remember, Mars once had an ocean even bigger than the Arctic Ocean. And even if it could be a rock, and probably is a rock, look at the similarities to a fish. An upturned nose, a fin, and even a finned tail too. Have I ever caught a fish? No. And have I tried? Yes, but if I did catch one, I bet it would look like this, and I bet it would also be a rock that I was trying to convince people was a fish. But let's move on to number 7, face on Jupiter. So yes, let's hop on over to another planet, our big one in our solar system, the big old gas giant Jupiter. And now this image shows what looks like a derpy looking face on the gas giant. It even has a lovely name. Wait for it. Jovi McJupiter face. Very nice, very cute. So this face was awarded that beautiful name by Jason Major, a citizen scientist who rotated a photo that NASA took. Now, NASA's Juno spacecraft sent down an unaltered photo, and Major was like, nah. Let's interpret these two storms as eyes and the wider swirling red part as a mouth, which is genius. Now, Jovi McJupiter face obviously shows we can see the beauty and art in anything in nature and life. So now the next section that we're going to be talking about is staying within the realm of our solar system, but going a little closer, a little smaller. So let's take a peek at the moons we have. So at number 6 we have Ravioli Moon. This delectable little treat of a moon is one of Saturn's moons. Its name is Pan, and yes, it looks like a little treat of ravioli. And ravioli gets tossed in a pan with butter or oil, right? Does that blend the two names together enough for you? Connections. Fun. Anyways, the reason it looks like the pasta is because material from Saturn's rings falls onto Pan's equator, and the buildup results in the really unique buildup on the equator that makes me think, you know, ravioli. But maybe if you don't have food on the brain, you may think Pan looks more like a flying saucer, and in that case, right on. But for me, ravioli. On to number 5, Death Star Moon. The second and last of our honorable moon mentions is Mimas, or Mimas, aka the Death Star Moon. Now this is another of Saturn's many moons, and this one garners a few more eyes because of its similarities to the Death Star from Star Wars. And you know, the big dish on the Death Star? Boom, big crater on Mimas. Is this really the Death Star in disguise? Probably not, since it's been orbiting Saturn for a bit, plus that idea was mainly for a fictional universe. Also mainly, this moon is really big. So Mimas is 396 kilometers in diameter, and the first Death Star and second Death Star were both between 160 and 140 kilometers in diameter. So if you're thinking, yeah, but what about the third Death Star? Well, that one's too big, measuring about 900 kilometers in diameter, so it's not that one either. So it's not the Death Star in disguise, so you can, you know, exhale and breathe a little bit. But it is a cool looking moon, so Yep. Okay, so next up is not only out of this world, but also out of this solar system. The next three we have are nebulas, which, if you don't know, are super cool on their own, even if they don't look like anything in particular, but these next three have the added X factor of looking just really cool. At number 4, we have Horsehead Nebula. So this first nebula we're looking at was captured by the Hubble Space Telescope back in 2013. The stunning nebula got the nickname Horsehead Nebula because of its looks. Think back to cloud watching when you were younger and seeing the shapes in them, and you can see that this nebula looks like the head and neck of a horse in this image with the nose of the horse facing the left. And unfortunately, we can't pay this little horsey a visit because it's about 1,500 light years away from the Orion constellation. And for reference, Orion's constellation is 243 to 1,360 light years away from us, so little ways away, but you can still admire it for its beautiful looks. This next one, number 3, is Space Crab. And so this one is quite a ways further. It's about 6,500 light years away from Earth, and it's the Crab Nebula. Now, let's look a bit more at this 5-layered composite image of this bad boy. So the composite image, it looks like something out of a movie. 1, stunning. And then again, 2, the colors, magnificent, such range. Do I sound like I'm impersonating Jonathan Van Ness? Yes. It looks like an artist made it. It's beautiful. And yes, this nebula is called the Crab Nebula because the range of its legs, so it's said, but others have also compared these outstretchings to an octopus's tentacles. And so if you're having a hard time seeing these legs or arms that I'm talking about, look mainly at the pink sections and a little bit at the yellow, and I find it helps you paint a picture of what you're looking at. I am the nebula. On to another nebula, the Twin Jet Nebula, also known as a space butterfly. So this cosmic butterfly looking thing is actually a 2-lobed nebula. It has the official name PNM2-9, and it was originally spotted back in 1947. It's more commonly known as the Twin Jet Nebula because really it looks like 2 jets coming out of the back of a rocket ship colliding into one another, and then the blasts radiating outwards. I feel like you could even argue it's 2 pop bottles head to head shrouded in like a green atmosphere. But then if you look right in the center, I say it looks like a fairy from Legend of Zelda, which looks a bit like a butterfly. So that's where you get the name Cosmic Butterfly. Mystery solved. The Twin Jet Nebula is obviously a fairy from Legend of Zelda. You're welcome. So our number 1 is the D&D asteroid. And obviously this one is my number 1 because I am a gamer. A tabletop role-playing gamer, that is. Asteroid 2017 BQ6 has been compared to dice used in playing Dungeons & Dragons and also other tabletop games because of its angular shape. And you kind of have to know that this is kind of odd because most planets and stuff around space is rounded. Kind of looks like a bunch of either spheres or just potatoes passing through. And so this asteroid passed from a distance of about 1.6 million miles away, but it didn't, land anywhere like dice usually do. And like, if you think about it, there's already enough people thinking we are living in a simulation. But guys, what if we live in a game? One of their dice in the great unknown fell into space, and now they're laughing at us because we rolled a natural 1 on perception. A simulation game. You're thinking The Sims, I'm thinking they're just dictating each of our lives with dice rolls. It's all up to random. Who knows?
Starting off this countdown, we have the Dropa stones. In 1938, archaeologist Dr. Chipute led an expedition near the Bayan Har Mountains in China. That's when they came across some interesting caves. These caves held evidence that ancient life once lived in them. After searching the caves, they found weird discs buried under thick layers of dust. These discs resembled phonograph records. Researchers dated them to be over 10,000 years old. Now, they didn't play music like a typical record, but instead they had hieroglyphics carved into them. When studied, it told a story about a spaceship that crashed into the mountains. Aboard the spaceship were people that called themselves the Dropa. Then later on, the discs were sent to Moscow for further studying. That's when they were placed on this special turntable, and the discs would vibrate or hum in a weird rhythm, as if an electric charge was passing through them. After that, research on the discs stopped. Or some believe research continued and they found/contacted alien life, which they just didn't tell the public. Either way, this is said to be one of the most mysterious artifacts in the world. In our 9th spot, we have the alien. And guys, here's just your little friendly reminder to hit that thumbs up button. In 2017, a man in Cusco made a pretty terrifying discovery in the southern desert of Peru. The artifact he found looks exactly like a tiny mummified alien head. An X-ray concluded that the skull had very alien-type features. The skull had angled eyelids with shallow eye sockets, 2 nostrils, and a narrow slit-type mouth. Now, whoever was in possession of the skull actually covered it in a type of clay, so that's what you see on the top of it, which makes it appear to look more like an alien. Researchers discovered that it is indeed a real skull, but they don't know what it belonged to. So it may just be that this skull belonged to a real-life alien from space. Moving on to number 8, we have the Wedge of Aiud. Back in 1974, construction workers in Romania were working in a village in Aiud when they came across some pretty weird objects. These objects were buried 30 feet in the sand by a river. Two of the objects were bones from mastodons, which are very distant relatives of an elephant. I mean, that's cool and all, but the thing that really caught their attention was this mysterious wedged-shaped object that was located by the bones. This object contained 89% aluminum, 6% copper, and a total of 12 elements all together. Here's the thing. Aluminum was discovered around 1825, yet this wedge lay next to bones that are from 11,000 years ago. The timeline just doesn't add up. The wedge itself is theorized to be around 10,000 years old. People believe that this object couldn't have existed way back then. An aeronautical engineer stated that this object looks exactly like a piece of a landing gear for landing aircrafts. This has left researchers to believe that aliens crashed their craft from space maybe 11,000 years ago. In our 7th spot, we have the Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone is a piece of a stone slab found in 1799. It has a message carved into it written in 3 different types of scripts. You got ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, Demotic scripts, and ancient Greek. This stone is the key to decipher Egyptian scripts. In 1814, British scientist Thomas Young started studying the stone and made some progress on cracking it. But it wasn't until 1822 to 1824 that the hieroglyphic code was finally cracked. This was done by French linguist Jean-François Champollion. It's hypothesized that the slab was created in Egypt in 196 BC, but we still don't know who created it. Now, this one is more of a conspiracy, but it's actually thought that the Rosetta Stone was made by aliens, and they delivered it to us from space. Obviously, there's no solid evidence to support this. In fact, archaeologist Paul Wasson believes the Rosetta Stone has lessons to teach us about creating a message that will allow us to communicate with aliens. Because we can't just assume that aliens speak English. In our 6th spot, we have the UFO tooth wheel. This is another artifact that is said to have come from aliens in space. So basically, back in the day, a Russian man was using coal to heat his home when he saw something sticking out of a piece of coal. He reported his findings, and researchers said it looked like a tooth wheel to some device. After tests were run on it, it was discovered that it was composed of 98% aluminum and 2% magnesium. Now remember what I said before? Humans discovered how to first make aluminum in 1825. But the piece of coal this artifact was found in was 300 million years old. So how is that even possible? In fact, the tooth wheel resembles parts that we currently use in microscopes and electronic devices. Again, back in the day, they didn't have any of those devices, so what the heck? Scientists are still running tests on this object to one day figure out who created it and figure out what its original purpose was. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the iron beads. Back in the day, it was found that ancient Egyptians created iron beads. They were carefully hammered into thin sheets, and then they would roll these into tubes. Then they would string them together and make a necklace. While studying them, they found the necklaces were over 5,000 years old. It was also revealed that the beads were made out of pieces from meteorites, and then they would hammer that down. Not only that, but it was revealed that the Egyptians had a more advanced understanding of metalsmithing than we originally thought. Moving on to number 4, we have the valuable meteorite. There's a meteorite out there that is more valuable than gold. It was April 23rd, 2019, and a weird colorful orb flew across the skies of Costa Rica. It was orange and green in color. This object was about the size of a washing machine, And then, just like that, it broke up into pieces that got scattered between two villages. One of the pieces was discovered by a woman named Marcia Campos Munoz. She heard the rumble and saw something crash down on her property. She was one of the few people to find a piece of this meteorite. Now, meteorites show up all the time on Earth, so what's so special about this one? Well, it turns out they belong to a rare class called carbonaceous chondrites. They formed when the solar system was still developing. It's believed that these pieces of meteorites will help us figure out what early solar system life was like. Moving on, at number 3 we have the ancient battery. Back in 1936 outside of Baghdad, a weird discovery was made. They discovered a small clay jar with an iron rod hanging in a copper cylinder in it. This was then soldered shut and sealed with asphalt. Upon analyzing it, it was discovered to produce small amounts of electricity. In fact, researchers said it looks like an ancient battery. However, we still don't know who created this and what its purpose was. But many people believe that this was a battery from an alien spacecraft that crashed down on Earth several thousands of years ago. Aliens are said to be very advanced species, so it could be that they figured out batteries and electricity way before humans ever did. Coming in at number 2, we have the alien spacecraft. In 2017, a Hawaiian man with a telescope spotted this weird object leaving the solar system. This object was named Oumuamua, and it's considered the first known interstellar object detected passing through the solar system. Here's the thing. Many people believe that this thing is an alien spacecraft. Let me explain. This thing looks like a space rock, but it's not a comet or asteroid. It's too small and oddly shaped to be an asteroid. The thing is long and shaped like a rocket. No asteroids that we know of are shaped like that. Not only that, but astronomers thought the first space rock to enter our solar system would be a ball of ice and rocks. A comet. But usually there's a cloud of dust and gas surrounding comets, and this object doesn't have that. So then what on earth is it? On top of that, it's said to emit blue colors from it. As a result, rumor has it that it's actually an alien spacecraft. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Hypatia stone. In 2013, a weird stone made its way to Earth from space. This stone has managed to leave scientists baffled. They claim it's unlike any other extraterrestrial rock ever found. In 2015, while analyzing the stone, they found it was not part of a meteorite or comet. So they were puzzled as to where it came from. Researcher Jan Kramer said, and I quote, "The stone's matrix contains a high amount of very specific carbon compounds, called polyaromatic hydrocarbons, or PAH, a major component of interstellar dust, which existed even before our solar system was formed." Meaning, this stone is super old. Like, it was around before the sun and planets had formed. It's mind-blowing, and they still haven't found out all about it.
At number 10, we have Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. And you think space, and where does your mind go? Star Wars or Star Trek? Well, congratulations if it's the former, because a little bit of Star Wars spent a little bit of time in space. Back in 2007, the space shuttle Discovery launched the STS-120 astronaut crew with an iconic prop on board with them. The lightsaber Mark Hamill used as Luke Skywalker back in Star Wars back in 2007 joined real astronauts in orbit for 2 whole weeks. An astronaut named Jim Riley said that there is a fine line between science fiction and reality, and the lightsaber served as a neat little link between the 2 space themes. Just imagine, they said they didn't open it, but if they did, they probably, like, let's be real, they did. They just opened it and they were like, phew. That's what I would. But let's go on to number 9, a corned beef sandwich. Now, if you're gonna go on a trip into space, you know it's gonna be a long one. And astronauts, they don't get the best food on board, getting most of their food freeze-dried or just nutrients they suck out of a pouch. But astronaut John Young was hoping for something just a little bit tastier. On March 23rd, 1965, John smuggled a corned beef sandwich on Flight Gemini 3. He got the sandwich from fellow astronaut Wally Schirra, who bought it from a Cocoa Beach, Florida deli. Now, because of the low gravity on the flight, it began to disintegrate when John took a bite, but he did say it was pretty good, and just if it would hold together, you know? All my sandwiches fall apart anyways, sadly. Anyways, another thing that made its way into space? At number 8, we have a saxophone. Now, for his birthday in 2007, Thomas Pesquet got a fun musical gift, his own saxophone. But it wasn't an ordinary delivery since Thomas lived on SpaceX's cargo craft at the time. It was delivered on the SpaceX Dragon alongside some French macaroons for his birthday, and yeah, he said he's a little out of practice since he stopped playing while he was training to be an astronaut, but isn't that cool? Once the workday is done, I can imagine that floating in space, could get a little boring after a while. But if you have some smooth, jazzy tunes on a woodwind to keep you going, it'll all be alright, You like jazz? Keep the meme references in. Whew. Okay. At number 7, piece of a plane. When Neil Armstrong went to the moon in 1969, he brought a little piece of a plane with him. And not just any plane too, but a piece of the rudimentary airplane the Wright brothers flew in 1903 when the aircraft came a few feet off the ground. Now, Neil had with him some of the fabric and some of the propeller of the Wright Flyer, and this was as a homage to pioneers that paved the way in aviation and beyond. Which, of course, all makes sense because the Wright brothers Flyer 1 was the first successful heavier-than-air powered aircraft. And so, you gotta respect those who came along before you, Alright, get ready for it, this one's special. At number 6, we have dirt. And yeah, okay, obviously it's not just any dirt, but it is dirt. The dirt that did go into space came from the pitcher's mound at Yankee Stadium. And you might be thinking, why, Abby? So basically, Garrett Reisman is not only an astronaut, but also a huge Yankees fan. And he was flying on Space Shuttle Endeavour's STS-123 mission back in 2008, and astronauts are allowed to bring mementos, so he thought, hey, why not bring up a little bit of dirt from the stadium of my favorite team? And it seems worth it when you find out he also threw the first ceremonial first pitch from space in microgravity. So the man's dedicated and he's gonna go down in history, so seems good to me. Now, the next one hasn't just traveled into space, but it has stayed there. At number 5 is the fallen astronaut. Now, not all people who went to the moon made it back safely. It is a risky job to be an astronaut after all. So now, resting on the moon is a small aluminum figurine by Belgian artist Paul van Hooijdonk. It is stylized to try to depict an astronaut in a spacesuit as a way to commemorate those who have passed in the advancement of space exploration. It was put on the moon in 1971 next to a plaque listing 14 American and Soviet men who were known to have died at that point. This was organized by astronaut David Scott before his Apollo 15 lunar mission, and now it serves as a nice tribute to all those who give their life to space. And now, people haven't been the only mammals to not make it through a space mission, which brings me to number 4. Lots of dead space monkeys, many called Albert. Now, before people were sent into space, animals were used to test the waters. Or the space. Now, in the US, monkeys or chimpanzees were used for this, and many were named Albert. After the first one they named Albert, they just decided to keep that name going. In some cases, when the apes passed away, the spacecrafts weren't reported as recovered, which has led people to believe that there may be some space junk out there with some monkeys still in them. Now, not all space places used monkeys back then. During the space race, the Soviets were using dogs to see how the atmosphere would affect creatures, which obviously sparked many heated debates on animal testing, but they don't do that anymore, so yay. Now let's move on to a lighter note, sports! At number 3 we have a golf ball. On the Apollo 14 trip, Alan Shepard decided to bring a couple of golf balls with him on his trip to the moon. He decided, hey, I'll take a few shots on the moon, so he attached a modified 8-iron club head to the end of a device that traditionally collects samples of moon dust, and then he just let her rip. Now, video footage shows that he missed the mark a few times and hit the ground before hitting the ball, but come on, can we really blame the guy? Gravity is different on the moon, so you have to give a guy some time to adjust, right? He sent one 200 yards, which, isn't too bad, but then he sent another one for what he said went on for miles and miles. So one scientist did the math and said Alan was right, with the right hit a golf ball could be sent about 2.5 miles. So at that point, that's quite a bit more than the world record of 515 yards, and I just want to say, Dad, can you do better than that? Just kidding, love you, Dad. Okay, bye. Let's move on to number 2, Buzz Lightyear toy. I mean action figure, whatever you call it, okay? So to infinity and beyond, and to infinity and beyond good old Buzz Lightyear went. Back in 2008, an action figurine of the Toy Story astronaut hopped aboard the International Space Station with the Discovery mission STS-124. He had a jolly old time, possibly missing some other toys to hang out with, but returned 15 months later on STS-128. So now, before Lightyear went on his journey, he was even given the all clear to go by the other Buzz astronaut, Buzz Aldrin. In a promo video for NASA, Buzz Aldrin even told Buzz Lightyear that he, Buzz Aldrin, was the real Buzz. And yes, it's true. Buzz Lightyear's name was inspired by Buzz Aldrin, so this second man to step out on the moon has a legacy more than the moon, also Buzz Lightyear. Toy Story. Yes. But let's finish up with number 1, tardigrades, or water bears. So if you're wondering what these things are, haven't heard it through the grapevine, let me break it down for you. Tardigrades are very tiny, yet microscopic, 8-legged creatures that are known to survive extreme temperatures. They can withstand being heated to 150 degrees Celsius and frozen to almost absolute zero. So knowing this, scientists did experiments with tardigrades and found out that some could withstand being in the vacuum of space. And this is because they can be brought back to life decades after being dehydrated, or it's at least possibly connected to that. So right now there are some of these tardigrades, aka water bears, aka moss piglets, on the moon. Now this is since an Israeli spacecraft crash landed on the moon this April. Also, some people think they are still alive, so maybe they'll be the first inhabitants on the moon. That'd be kinda cool, little bears. Microscopic, but yeah.
Starting off this countdown, we have King Tut's dagger. Upon excavating the tomb of King Tut in 1925, scientists discovered a long 34-centimeter dagger wrapped up with King Tut. Now, back then there was no way for them to do studies on the dagger without damaging it. However, an X-ray done in 1970 showed that the dagger was made of some interesting compounds, primarily nickel and iron. Back then, iron was considered very rare. And how could it have been composed of iron when his burial predated Egypt's Iron Age by nearly 2,000 years? So right there, that's a little shocking. As a result of the iron and nickel composition, scientists have declared it was made from extraterrestrial metal. Now, there are 2 theories here. One is that a meteorite crashed down and then they used that to make the dagger. Theory 2 is that the dagger was made by aliens and dropped or left by them accidentally. I mean, some honestly do think that the ancient Egyptians were in contact with aliens. If that's the case, then the dagger might have originally been from the ETs.
Coming in number 9 with the Dropa stones. The Dropa stones are maybe the wildest discovery when it comes to artifacts from space. These are basically CDs from 10,000 years ago that have a whole story on them that talk about aliens crash landing on Earth and then giving some tools to humans. Okay, let me backtrack a little bit. These stones were found in a cave in China. At first glance, they seem to have hieroglyphs all over them, and almost like they were created for a phonograph. When deciphered, there was a whole story of aliens coming to Earth that were named the Dropa. They crashed on Earth, met humans in the area, gave them tech, fixed their ship, and then bounced. When you play these Dropa discs, they hum and vibrate like they're creating some sort of energy. And that is where all the research stops. On the record, these things were just put away and no one ever looked at them again. But you and I both know that is a bunch of horse poop. These were obviously taken somewhere to be researched behind a watchful eye.
Coming in at number 8, we have the US Delta II rocket. Back in January of 1997, a woman named Lottie Williams was out minding her own business on a nice little walk. To her surprise, she was greeted by a streak of light in the sky. All of a sudden, she felt something brush her shoulder. Turns out that this thing that brushed her was part of a US Delta II rocket. The rocket was launched in 1996. A year later, it came crashing down in pieces. Lottie said when she felt something brush by, she turned around and saw something on the ground. It was a small piece of burnt mesh. Now she is extremely lucky because had it been a bigger piece, it probably would have knocked her down and killed her. Here's the thing, analysis shows that it's most likely part of the Delta II rocket. Most likely, still not 100% confirmed. For all we know, that could be a piece from an alien spacecraft.
Coming in at number 7, we have the pyramids. Here's the thing, do I actually think that pyramids came from space? Do I think that aliens came down from space and came to humans and were like, dudes, we're aliens, we're from the future, we got tech, it's so cool, it's gonna blow your socks off, and we're gonna make a civilization so sick with some big triangles that come out of the ground, and you can put your coolest dead bodies in them. No, I don't think that. I think that the pyramids were made with an insane amount of manpower because back then life was cheaper than it is now, and you could just have an army of slaves move rocks until they physically couldn't and then could just bring in a new army. That's how I think they did it. Also, no one had a phone back then, so you couldn't even get distracted while you were on the job. What are you gonna try and do, build a sandcastle? That would have been impossible because there was literally no water around. But that being said, there are a lot of people who think that the pyramids could have been built by some alien coming down to Earth and giving humans the tools to build these monuments with the precision of having them pointing at north, east, south, and west, with some people thinking that they are power plants that could create electricity. I think most of the people who think that have never been to Egypt, but you know it's good to make those assumptions assumptions after watching 30 minutes worth of YouTube videos.
Moving on to number 6, we have the Russian tank. In March of 2011, a man was out hiking in northwestern Colorado when he came across something strange. The object was round and warm to touch. It was also in a crater, meaning whatever this was had just crashed down from space. The hiker then called military aerospace officials. Later, it was revealed that this weird object was the tank from a Russian Zenit 3 rocket. The rocket was launched in January. 2 months later, it came crashing back down. Fun fact, it's one of only a handful of space debris to be found in the US. But seriously, imagine being out for a walk and seeing something fly towards you from the sky. Like damn, that's another thing to worry about, being killed by space debris.
Coming in at number 5, we have the Roman Decahedron. Some sort of 3D octagon, and no one knows what they do. Like 0 people have been able to figure out what these things were for, and one of the weirdest parts about them is that we have found a lot of them. They seem to all come from the Roman era and were moved out to every territory that the Romans controlled. There are over 100 of these strange devices that have been found, and there are several guesses as to what they could do. Some people think they could have been some sort of status symbol. To have one in your home would have meant you were rich and in good graces with the Emperor of Rome. They might have just been decoration, or they could have been some sort of communication device from space, and it's how the Romans were able to be so powerful.
In our 4th spot, we have the Roswell rock. This rock is a very weird rock with a detailed design. The rock is uniform in color, unusually smooth, and has a design protruding from the surface of it. This rock was found in Roswell, New Mexico in 2004 by a man named Robert Ridge. He was a deer hunter. Apparently, he found this rock half sticking out of the ground and was shocked by its unusual and perfect design, as well as its strange magnetic properties. Upon analyzing it, people have realized that the rock's design actually matches a crop circle that was found in England in 1996, which makes this whole thing that much weirder. Now, some are convinced that this rock is some message sent by aliens. After experts have analyzed the design, they notice that it's a pattern of a sun and a moon inside of a circle. A woman named Linda Moulton Howe, who's an investigative journalist, believes that aliens are trying to teach us about astronomy with this rock, or that the rock contains a date for some event that has or will happen. It's pretty spooky. I just wish we knew more about this weird rock.
Coming in number 3, we have fungus. When you look at all the living beings on this planet, why has fungus got its own spot? I mean, those things are just plants, right? Wrong. Fungus are some of the most advanced life forms on the planet. They have functionality that spreads in extreme diversity from species to species. Some of them have the ability to mind control a host and then kill it so it spreads spores. Others have advanced communication techniques that allow them to find the most direct routes to one another. Because of this, there's speculation that fungus might have come here by aliens or might have touched down on Earth via meteor.
And at number 2, we have the Betts Mystery Sphere. On March 27, 1974, the Betts family were out examining a small bushfire near their property. While doing so, the family came across a completely smooth metal sphere. It was about the size of a bowling ball. On this sphere, there was a triangle engraved in it. They took it home only to find that it had strange properties. One day when their son was playing his guitar in the same room as this sphere, it started to emit a throbbing sound from it. The sound was strong enough to hurt the family's dog's ears. This sphere can also change directions, so if you push it across the floor, it will roll forward and then stop and then roll back all on its own. It's also said to be able to absorb power from solar energy. It's said to be more active when exposed to the sun. Now, they refused to let anyone analyze it until they linked the sphere to paranormal activity that was happening around the house. Like doors would slam by themselves and they would hear this weird organ music. Now, scientists have analyzed it and they said it was just a normal sphere. How late? But the family is convinced that something is controlling it. Maybe something of the extraterrestrial nature. Seriously, where did this sphere come from and what's the deal with its weird properties? Seems like it came from space.
And coming at the number 1 spot, we have alien coins. So who do we always see plastered on coins? Well, it's our most rich and famous people, the ones that define our culture at the time, or the rulers that control the area, and if you don't put their face on the money, they will for sure cut your head off. Well, then there's a bunch of questions as to why some alien coins were found in Egypt. There was a massive renovation done on some homes in Egypt, which dug up one of the strangest artifacts to date. They were a series of coins that were found that had not a queen's head on them or a pharaoh, but an alien dude, like the one that looks like he's pulled right out of the movies, like the green dude with the big head and the green skin, and you know, all that stuff going on. You guys know what I'm talking about. But this dude had like a toga on, so he kind of looked a little bit boss. There were also several coins that were found that seemed to have spaceships on them. If the ruler theory is right, there could have been an alien ruler who came down from the stars in ancient Egypt. Someone who maybe crash landed and needed to get his ship fixed, and while he was waiting for his repairs to be done, he was worshipped like a god.